Hello, I'm Jeff Paur, senior writer for RealTime Fantasy Sports. Welcome to another edition of Wavering. It's week 4. Logan Glaser and I are going to give you all of our waiver wire picks for this week, helping you get ready for the week 4 games. It should be an interesting time on the waiver wire as well because there was a lot of injuries last week, unfortunately. Also, a lot of big performances as well. So there's some players on there that you definitely want to keep an eye on. So, like I mentioned, Logan Glaser is going to join me again. I'm going to bring him up here now on the show. Logan, thanks so much for joining me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jeff. This was really our first week that we saw several running backs go down for so far this season. So there's definitely a lot of interesting waivers that you can take a look at this week.
Yeah, and I think it's a good lesson to learn. I actually wrote about this in my wavering column a little bit about getting those handcuffs for running backs because a lot of the guys that you will see on other shows, other uh, articles as well, they're telling you to pick up or on rosters on our site. I mean, Alexander Madison, uh, he's not available in any leagues. Jamal Williams as well. These guys are all sewn up. So I think it's a lesson to be learned that, you want to get these top backups on your rosters.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yep. All right, let's get into it then, Logan. Let's talk about our waiver wire picks for this week. We're going to do the QB spot first. Who do you got?
Yeah, my one QB is probably the highest percent owned that I'm going to be looking at, but he is a free agent in my our Champions League, so he could definitely still be a free agent in your league, and that is Trevor Lawrence. So he's currently top 10 in the NFL, which is very surprising. I don't think anyone would have predicted this to come into the season. He's averaging over 22 points per game so far in the season, and the Jags have been an exciting team so far this year. He has an awful Week 4 matchup against Philadelphia. So I'm going to be just stashing him on my bench. But then I absolutely love his weeks 5 through 10. He's playing Houston, Indianapolis, New York Giants, Denver, Las Vegas, and KC. So I expect him to keep on continuing maybe a top 15 performance throughout the rest of the season. And I love him weeks 5 through 10, especially when QB's going by. So if he's available in your league, I would go ahead and try to stash him.
Yeah, last week you're going to be able to get him. He's looking great right now. So I have a couple lesser known options. It's kind of hard at this point, finding some good quality options in the waiver wire QB, but a couple guys I think could be good streamers. First one's Geno Smith. Really surprised that I'm actually saying this, but he's looked good. Scored a season high 23.3 fantasy points last week. Hit the 300-yard passing mark in that game. Multiple touchdowns, 2 of his last 3 games. And the Seahawks said they wanted to see him take more chances down the field and they kind of took the reins off him, and it showed last week. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, they've been producing pretty well. Smith's really completing passes at a high level also. His completion percentage is really high, and he has a great matchup this week. He plays the Lions, so I think he could be a good streaming play if you're looking for someone to use this week. Geno Smith. My next one is Zach Wilson. So he is expected to return this week from his knee injury. He's available in nearly 80% of leagues on our site. The main reason I'm interested in Wilson are the pass attempts from Joe Flacco. So he started 3 games, Joe Flacco. He's thrown 50-plus passes 2 of those 3 games, attempted 44 in the other game. So that's 51.7 pass attempts per game for Joe Flacco. If Wilson's getting that type of volume, even though he could have some turnover issues, whatever, he's going to throw up some yards, get some touchdowns as well. He's a really talented player, and I'm anxious to see what he can do with all those weapons. So Wilson's a guy I might stash if you're looking for some QB help on your roster. All right, let's look at the running backs now, Logan. Who do you got there?
Yeah, and my number one running back I'm going to be looking at is Khalil Herbert, who actually led all of NFL last week in rush yards. He had 20 rushes for 157 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he's got a great matchup this upcoming week with New York Giants, who just got pounded by Zeke and Pollard, who put up 180 rushing yards. So a lot's going to depend on David Montgomery's injury. So a lot will come down to that, but it's looking like he might miss some time. For running backs, we saw a lot of top-tier running backs go down this past week. We saw Dalvin Cook a little banged up. He's a little questionable for this week. DeAndre Swift looks like he's going to miss a couple of weeks, along with David Montgomery. So that's definitely a position to look at, even though most of these handcuffs have already been claimed on the waivers. There's still some leagues that have them out there, and I would definitely suggest picking up Herbert if he's a free agent in your league. And my other one is going to be a buy low candidate. He's probably already picked up in your league, but that is Kenneth Walker. So you can probably get him extremely cheap. Last week I said to go get Stevenson. He had a great week. I also think you should go ahead and get Kenneth Walker and stash him on your bench. He was only started in 3% of leagues on RT Sports, so he's just taking up bench spots in people's leagues, waiting for a Rashad Penny injury to happen, because if that happens, I think Kenneth Walker can absolutely boom with the Seattle offense, because he has the ability to catch passes out of the back. He's put up decent running yards per rush so far in the limited opportunities that he's had, but he's one injury away from being a top 15 running back in fantasy, I believe.
Yeah, I like that call on buying low on Kenneth Walker. I agree. Penny has not looked great. He's not catching passes either, so he's been a bust for fantasy teams in general, in my opinion. It's only a matter of time, I think, before Walker starts getting more looks. All right, my two running backs, not too exciting. This position is not really a great one, in my opinion, for the waiver wire this week, but a couple guys you might want to think about. First guy is Samaje Perine. So kind of what I talked about earlier with, handcuffing those top running backs. So Joe Mixon got beat up. It looks like he avoided anything serious, and they already said he should be good to go for Thursday's game. But Perine's the backup. He's played well with his chances as well. He had 9 carries for 47 yards last week. That was because, like I mentioned, Mixon got beat up a little bit, and he caught 2 passes for 14 yards as well, scored 14.1 fantasy points. And I even think that Mixon might be, phased back just a little bit just because of what happened last week as well. They've really been, pushing him kind of hard. So maybe Perine gets more work anyway, even if Mixon's fine and healthy. But if you're a Mixon owner, I definitely would grab Perine, who's available in 84% of leagues on our site. My other one's a deeper dive. Craig Reynolds with the Detroit Lions. DeAndre Swift, like you mentioned, Logan's probably out a couple weeks. Hasn't really been confirmed, but it looks that way because of his shoulder injury now. He had the ankle, now a shoulder. Unfortunately, I have a ton of stock of DeAndre Swift this year. An injury bug has got him once again. I'm sure it's very frustrating to fantasy owners. But if you don't have Jamal Williams, I'd look at Craig Reynolds possibly, mainly because they like to rotate backs in Detroit. So even if Williams is the starter, I still think Reynolds is going to get some work in that backup role. Could have some potential, maybe even as a flex play in deeper formats. He looked really good in the preseason. The coaching staff really likes him and trusts him as well. So I would consider grabbing Reynolds if you're looking for some, in some deeper leagues, looking for some running back help. Let's move on to receiver now. I felt like there was a lot of good options this week, and probably guys we aren't even going to mention that could be good pickups for everybody. But give me a couple guys, Logan, at receiver.
Yeah, wide receivers have been so deep this year, and the first wide receiver I'm going to be looking on waivers is Mack Hollins. So a lot is going to depend. He's currently owned in only 1.9%, so odds are that you're going to be able to get him on your waiver wire. But a lot for him comes down to if Hunter Renfrow is going to be good to go for next week. So he's still questionable, so we're going to find out more throughout practices and with their injury reports. But if Hunter Renfrow is not able to go, Mack Hollins could be a sneaky flex play. I mean, last week he had 8 receptions, 158 yards, and also a touchdown, led the NFL in yardage last week. So he put up over 30 fantasy points. We expected Hollins to have more points than Jefferson, didn't we? Jefferson had a whole 13 yards or something like that. So I like Hollins as my first wide receiver. And my second one is Zay Jones, who I believe, Jeff, you had him a couple of weeks ago as your waiver wire target. But as we mentioned with Lawrence, I absolutely love Jaguar schedules week 5 through 10. So I expect Jaguars to continue to be that exciting team. Jacksonville also has 2 top 25 fantasy wide receivers so far with Zay Jones and Christian Kirk. I don't think we would have thought that as well with the Jaguars, but here we are. So I like Zay Jones. He had 10 receptions last week and expect him to build on that.
Yeah, I love the Zay Jones call. I like him a lot, and that offense is looking good. Like you said, great matchups as well. So good call on those Jaguars receivers. My 2 receivers, first one, I think we mentioned him last week, can't remember, but Isaiah McKenzie, he's still available in a lot of leagues, rostered in just 33.2%. He has found the end zone 2 of the last 3 games. He got his most work of the season offensively last week, caught 7 passes for 76 yards on 9 targets. He's emerging as a consistent target in a really, really good Bills passing game. He's still available, like I said, in a lot of leagues, almost 2/3 leagues on our site. So if you're looking for receiver help, I would get McKenzie. I don't think it's a fluke. He plays in a great offense, working out of the slot. Cole Beasley's produced some great numbers in that role in past seasons as well in Buffalo. So I like McKenzie a lot going forward. And my other one is Greg Dortch. Never in a million years thought I'd be promoting Greg Dortch before the season, but that's where we are at this point. He just keeps making plays in the Cardinals offense. As long as DeAndre Hopkins is out, he's suspended for the first 6 games of the season. I think Dortch has good value. He has at least 13 fantasy points all 3 games this year. He had a season high in catches and yards last week. Like I said, he's going to be getting work in an offense that's really pass first. They're having trouble running the ball in Arizona, and Dortch is still available in 70, about 74% of leagues on our site. So go get Dortch if you're looking for some receiver help. Now let's move on to the always exciting tight end position. Logan, it's still been kind of frustrating, but it was good to see Pitts actually do something last week, so that was a
For
positive.
sure.
Who do you
Yeah, he
have?
didn't find the end zone, but he got some receptions and yards, so we'll take that in the leagues that we have. But my first tight end I'm going to be looking at is David Njoku. He's currently rostered in 36%, making him available in 64. But he played on 88% of the offensive snaps so far for Cleveland throughout the first 3 games. And I love a tight end that's always on the field. They mainly use him as a blocker, which that's what he specializes in, rushing blocking. But when you're playing 88% of the snaps, especially with Cleveland, they found unique ways to get Njoku the ball last week. He had 9 receptions for 89 yards and a touchdown. So just his sheer volume that he's on the field is what attracts me to Njoku. So he put up 23 fantasy points in a tight end position that's very scarce so far this season. So I'd be looking at stashing him on my team.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised to see him available in so many leagues still on our site as well. He's a super, super talented guy.
Yeah, he
So,
also got a huge offseason
yeah.
contract, so they are committing to him for so.
Yeah, it seems like we have a theme with a lot of our players are on similar teams throughout this broadcast that we're doing here. And I have another one that we've talked about, another team. And I got Will Dissly on here. A little bit of a, again, surprise, but he's actually outsnapped Noah Fant this year. He's played the most snaps at tight end for Seattle, 61% of the snaps, 2 of 3 games he's played. So he's been on the field a lot. Like you said, you have to be on the field to make plays. And Dissly's the guy who's made some plays, especially in the red zone. Touchdowns 2 of 3 games, multiple receptions every game as well. I still think he's a bit of a touchdown dependent play at this stage of the game, but still, he's getting those touchdowns, finding the end zone. He's available in nearly every league on our site. He's rostered in just 2.3% of leagues. So Dissly's out there. It's been a disappointing position. So if you're looking to stream a tight end, want to take a chance on a guy who's been finding the end zone, I'd look at Will Dissly. All right, Logan, we like to do this every week as well. It is a streaming defense. A lot of people like to stream defenses. They don't want to go with one of those set defenses, don't want to use high draft capital on them. So give us a streaming defense for week 4.
Yeah, week 4, I'm going to be looking at Cleveland Browns. So reports just came out about Myles Garrett with a car crash. So hopefully he's all right. It looks like he might miss some time, but I'm still streaming their defense. So they're facing Atlanta this week. Atlanta has given up 3+ sacks in the last 2 weeks. Marcus Mariota also has a fumble lost in every single game he's played this year. He also has 3 interceptions, so he's got 6 turnovers in 2 games, just him alone. So I'm going to be looking at capitalizing on that. You always love to have a defense that's playing a quarterback that kind of scrambles because they can get into difficult situations in the backfield, which leads to sacks, also turns the ball over a lot. So I'm going to be looking at Cleveland Browns this week.
Very true. My defense, and again, I think I may have picked them last week. I can't remember. My memory's terrible. But I have the Chicago Bears. They're owned in just 22% of leagues on our site. They're playing the Giants. I don't know if you watched that game Monday night, but they can't block at all. I mean,
No.
Daniel Jones was running for his life. Apparently, he had the most pressures in a game since I think it was 2019 or something crazy. But he was just running for his life last week. I think the Bears can get after him. They have multiple sacks, 2 of 3 games. Plus, they had multiple interceptions last week. And now the Giants are down Sterling Shepard. Tony's been hurt. Galladay's a mess. So I don't like that passing attack at all. And I think the Bears would be a good streaming defense.
For sure. I like that play.
All right, Logan, those are all our picks for week 4, I should say, of wavering. As always, appreciate you joining me. Look forward to doing the show later in the week. Our start, sits, and sleepers should be an interesting one as well. Appreciate it once again,
For
Logan.
sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Jeff.
All right, this has been Jeff Paur for RealTime Fantasy Sports.
This has been Logan Glaser from RealTime Fantasy Sports.
Good luck in week 4, everybody.